Before diving into this incredible story, remember to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, every story has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. Chicago's airport was buzzing with activity. Families rushed to catch their flights, announcements blaring above the clatter of luggage rolling on the carousels and suitcases being dragged behind them. In the midst of this crowd, a black man, elegant, patient, and clearly in a hurry, walked toward the gate. His name was Darius Thompson, a successful entrepreneur who owned several luxury hotels across the country. But that day, no one knew it. A security guard, Officer Randall Hayes, spotted him. Randall had always been known for his aggressive temper and intolerance. Upon seeing Darius, he frowned, judging his appearance to be suspicious. Without thinking, he called out to him abruptly. "Sir, you must present yourself immediately for inspection." Darius, surprised but calm, obeyed. He felt the passenger's eyes turn towards him, some shocked by the officer's rudeness. "Why me?" asked Darius, trying to remain calm. "You know that very well," Randall replied curtly. "We can't let just anyone through." Then, without warning, the officer grabbed Darius by the arm, violently pulling him towards a secluded area. Humiliating words were hurled at him, accusing Darius of lying about his identity and insinuating that he was a criminal. Darius felt anger rising, but he remained in control. What he didn't know was that this moment would change Randall's life forever. For Darius was not just an ordinary passenger, he was the owner of one of the most prestigious hotels in the city, and he had just booked a stay for Randall's superior and his family. A few minutes later, when the truth came out and Randall realized he had just humiliated the man who had the power to ruin his career in an instant, his face flushed red. The crowd around them held its breath as Darius, still calm but implacable, uttered these words. "Officer Hayes, I think we need to review your concept of respect." The silence that followed sealed the beginning of a confrontation that would not only be legal, but deeply personal. Darius Thompson left the airport with his characteristic quiet elegance. The taxi took him to the Majestic Hotel, his flagship establishment, an imposing building in the heart of Chicago, known for its understated luxury and impeccable service. At every turn, he observed passers-by and employees, noting details like a strategist assessing the terrain before a battle. In the hotel lobby, the receptionists greeted him with immediate respect, still unaware of the humiliation he had just suffered. Darius headed toward his private office, a glass-enclosed space overlooking the city, where he could see everything without being seen. He paused to breathe, then took out his phone to check the reservations. That's when he saw Randall Hayes' name. His superior had booked a suite for the weekend. Darius felt a chill of satisfaction run down his spine. This arrogant, racist policeman was about to find out that humiliation couldn't go unpunished, but not in the way he imagined. Rather than reacting with anger or immediate revenge, Darius opted for strategy. He summoned the hotel's head of security, a discreet but loyal man, and explained the situation. "I want everything to be perfect for this day, and I want Mr. Hayes to feel the weight of his actions, but with elegance. No public humiliation. Just a reminder of his mistake." Meanwhile, Randall Hayes, unaware of Darius's connection to the hotel, was packing his suitcase, proud of his role as a zealous security guard. He had no idea that the man he had humiliated was far more influential than him and that he would soon find himself in a position of total vulnerability. Darius, sitting in his office, gave a slight smile. The game had just begun. He knew that the real lesson for Randall would not be in the immediate confrontation, but in how silent power could change the dynamic of an arrogant person. The first signs were already visible. Employees were beginning to whisper his name respectfully, preparations for Mr. Hayes' stay were accelerating, and Darius knew that the policeman would soon discover that luxury could be a tool for instruction. The weekend arrived, and the Hotel Majestic gleamed in the Chicago sun. Regular guests admired the hotel's understated elegance, but that day, the hotel was the silent stage for an impending confrontation. Darius Thompson observed every detail from his private office, like a conductor overseeing a complex symphony. Randall Hayes entered the lobby, dragging his suitcase arrogantly. He was still in character as a zealous police officer, thinking no one knew his true nature. But Darius had orchestrated a first lesson as soon as he arrived. At reception, the hotel's security guard, a discreet man named Marcus Lee, greeted Randall with impeccable professionalism, but the tone of his remarks was subtly condescending. Every word seemed to underscore the fact that Randall was no longer in control of the situation. "Welcome to the Hotel Majestic, Mr. Hayes. We have prepared your suite with the utmost care. Your preferences have been noted, and we hope your stay will be memorable." Randall frowned, surprised by the familiarity and excessive attention. He hadn't known that Darius had made sure every employee was informed of his visit and past behavior at the airport. But the policeman didn't know that power could be silent and insidious. In the suite, Randall discovered details that made him uncomfortable. The suite was exactly as he had always dreamed, but every element, from the menus to the favorite drinks, had been selected to make him feel observed and measured, as if he were in a theater where he was not the hero but the spectator of his own humiliation. Meanwhile, Darius watched the scene unfold from his office. He didn't want a brutal confrontation or immediate revenge. His goal was more subtle, to make Randall understand that his arrogance and racism had consequences, even when he thought he could act with impunity. On the first evening, Randall tried to enjoy the hotel pool. But Marcus, the head of security, made sure the policeman always felt slightly watched, never directly attacked, but constantly reminded that he was no longer in control. Every gesture, every movement, every moment of relaxation was accompanied by polite but oppressive attention, subtly orchestrated by Darius. Watching this, Darius gave a faint smile. The real lesson came not from words, but from the silent power of respect, control, and reversed justice. Randall would soon understand that his world, built on authority and arrogance, could crumble without a single humiliating word. The next morning, Randall Hayes woke up confidently, expecting an uneventful day. He had already begun to feel slightly unwell at the hotel, but he attributed it to his own stress. What he didn't know was that Darius Thompson had planned an unexpected awakening. Darius had invited some of his close associates to lunch in the hotel's private restaurant. Among them were influential figures from the hotel industry and private security. Every service decision, every detail, had been designed to demonstrate that the hotel was not simply a place, but an instrument of control and observation. When Randall arrived at the restaurant, he was greeted with a polite but icy smile. Darius stood up to greet him, but with perfect restraint, as if this man were just an ordinary guest. "Officer Hayes, I'm delighted you arrived without incident," said Darius courteously. "I hope your stay will be most comfortable." Randall felt his heart sink. Darius's tone wasn't hostile, but every word weighed like a silent reminder of what he'd done at the airport. He'd humiliated this man, and now he found himself facing him, in a context where power had changed hands. During lunch, Darius subtly initiated a conversation. "We recently implemented new security measures in all my establishments," he said, smiling. "I find it interesting that some people sometimes need to see security from a different perspective." Randall paled. He realized that Darius knew everything that had happened at the airport. But he was still too proud to apologize immediately. He tried to rationalize it, telling himself it was just a coincidence. Darius, on the other hand, was relishing this moment. He had turned the situation to his advantage. Randall was now aware of his mistakes, but could not react impulsively, for fear of losing even more credibility. The true weight of the lesson would hit that very evening, when a special invitation to a private event was delivered to Randall's suite. He was still unaware that this dinner would confront him with his past behavior in a public but elegant manner, under the gaze of colleagues, influential friends, and even his police superiors. Darius, sitting in his office, thought. True power lies not in anger, but in silent control. And tonight, he will understand what it means to be judged by those he despises. As evening fell, the private restaurant at the Hotel Majestic glowed with 1,000 soft lights. The guests, all hand-picked by Darius, occupied the tables with effortless elegance. The dinner had been presented as an event to celebrate collaborations and successes in the hotel and security sectors, but Randall Hayes was unaware that he was the discrete focus of this lesson. Darius, impeccable in his dark suit, stood up when Randall entered. All eyes were subtly directed towards the policeman. Darius greeted him with a perfectly measured smile. "Officer Hayes, I am delighted that you accepted my invitation. We have all heard of your exploits at the airport," he said, his voice soft but sharp as a scalpel. Randall felt a shiver run down his spine. Every word was polite, but every syllable made him feel uneasy. The guests' murmurs grew slightly louder, and he realized the attention wasn't insignificant. "You know," Darius continued, "it's fascinating to see how insignificant some gestures can seem, until you realize their true impact." Randall, now feeling uneasy, looked for a way out, but Darius left him none. The man had orchestrated this confrontation with surgical precision. He didn't shout, didn't publicly humiliate, but made Randall feel the full extent of his past arrogance. "I hope you enjoy your stay," said Darius, smiling subtly. "And perhaps in the future you will be more mindful of how you treat others." Randall lowered his eyes, unable to reply. The lesson had been taught, and he was receiving it without being able to retaliate. The guests exchanged discreet glances, understanding that the policeman had underestimated the man he had humiliated. Then Darius raised his glass. "To those who finally understand the value of respect and silent power." The clinking of glasses echoed through the room, and for the first time, Randall felt the shame of his actions, not through harsh words, but through the elegant justice orchestrated by Darius. Tonight, he learned that true power wasn't measured by displayed authority, but by how one could control a situation with composure and dignity. The next morning, Randall Hayes awoke in his suite, but sleep had been nearly impossible. Every detail of the previous evening haunted him, the polite yet penetrating glances, Darius's calculated remarks, and above all, the respectful but oppressive silence of the guests. He finally understood a truth he had always ignored: the humiliation he had inflicted on a black man had not gone unnoticed and could have unforeseen consequences. Darius, for his part, hadn't sought to destroy him. He wanted to teach him a lasting lesson. At the reception, Randall was greeted by Marcus Lee, the head of security, who remained polite but distant. Every gesture subtly reminded the policeman that control had changed hands. When he left the hotel to catch his return flight, Darius personally accompanied him to the hall. Without any anger in his voice, he said, "Officer Hayes, I hope your time here has taught you that respect is not an option, but a necessity. We all have the power to destroy or uplift others. I leave the choice to you in the future." Randall, unable to respond, felt a heavy responsibility weigh on his shoulders. For the first time, he realized that his actions were not without consequences. The humiliation he had inflicted had not only affected Darius, but also revealed the fragility of his own behavior and his career. A few weeks later, Randall radically changed his approach to the service. He began to treat people with respect, even when he thought they were inferior or suspicious. Those around him immediately noticed his different behavior: more humble, more attentive, and above all, more aware of the dignity of others. As for Darius, he continued his life, elegant and master of his household, knowing that he had transformed a moment of injustice into a powerful lesson in authority and respect. He had shown that true revenge lies not in anger or public humiliation, but in self-control, patience, and quiet composure. And so Randall Hayes learned what many people still don't know: arrogance can be corrected without violence, but only by those who possess true power.